Good morning. So I'm going to be talking about the Star Trek Lower Decks, episode 10 of season 1. It's the season finale. Isn't that great? So the episode starts off, they're on Beta 3, and they're talking about Landru. Landru has made a comeback to take over the society. This is a reference to the episode The Return of the Archons from the original series episode. So, yeah, it's kind of commentary about how Starfleet, especially in the TOS era, they would often have your aliens of the week, and they would do their thing and then never check back, and that's just kind of episodic television for you. But it's fun having commentary on that. I've actually seen a video from Steve Shives, who he talked about how the episode Space Seed with Khan, and then the follow-up, which was the movie Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, was actually Kirk's fault, for never having checked back in on SETI Alpha 5 or SETI Alpha 6, whichever it was supposed to be, where Khan was left to his own devices and there was no checking up on them. And that's really what Khan was upset about is, WTF. You just kind of left me here to rot. So this is just kind of more commentary on that, where it's just kind of like very meta, where episodic television is, hey, by the end of the episode, everything is whatever, and the next week you completely forgot about what happened last week. So it's a little bit more commentary on that. So, and then Ransom actually ends up saying, it's always weird visiting planets from the TOS era, and obviously that's very meta, just wink, wink, at the audience. TOS, what does TOS mean? Oh, those old scientists, Kirk, Spock, Scotty, McCoy, so that was a good reference. So and then there was also a lot of commentary on the inconsistencies of the Prime Directive. So Boimler ends up spilling the beans to the crew completely on accident. He had an open comm line and didn't realize it. That Mariner is the captain's daughter. So yeah, this is actually something that had been kind of like a story thread throughout the season, though I didn't quite realize it until the last episode when Boimler found out that this was actually something that was kind of more important to the overall season. But yeah, he ends up confessing to Mariner that, hey, I know you're the captain's daughter, and then she's just like, yeah, no one is supposed to know that. Shut up, and there's actually something really there's just something really to be said about that. Hey, I don't want people to know I have really high connections on this ship. I mean, there's actually some integrity there. As much as this character pretends she has no integrity, she actually has a lot of it. So I've had experiences with that in the Navy, where people who worked under me would be like, oh, my dad's a master chief, so blah, blah, blah. You have to do this for me. And it's like, I don't work for your dad, and neither do you. So you can take that and shove it. And, so I don't play those games. You want to use your connections with me, you're going right out the airlock. So, I do think, though, that there was a missed opportunity here to discuss Nicholas Locarno and Tom Paris. Because I've seen speculation that they actually are the same character. Okay, so just a refresh. Nicholas Locarno is a character played by Robert Duncan McNeil in the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, The First Duty. He was involved in a flight accident and a cover-up with Wesley Crusher. And he ends up getting expelled from the academy as a result once Wesley and them end up coming clean about what actually happened. And then Star Trek Voyager, this character, also played by Robert Duncan McNeil, Tom Paris, who was someone who was kicked out of Starfleet for a flight accident that he was involved in a cover-up. And then, of course, after that, ended up joining the Maquis and then getting arrested, and that's when Janeway picks him up from the New Zealand penal colony. So the speculation is that they actually are the same character, and that Tom Paris, because Admiral Owen Paris is actually a huge bigwig in Starfleet, Tom Paris didn't want his connections to be known about and entered the academy being known under a false name, which is the name Nicholas Locarno. So that would have been cool to make that canon. So, but yeah, or at least see that on screen, or maybe not necessarily make that canon, but to kind of wink and nod at it, because this would have been a perfect opportunity to do that. Okay, so something else that was a throwback, the Exocomp. That was from the Next Generation episode, The Quality of Life. Season 6 episode. So, that was good to see exocomps again. Whatever happened to those things? So the exocomps were tools used by the scientists that they were able to end up gaining a lot of knowledge, and because they were able to basically program to learn, they ended up gaining sentience. So, and Data was really the only one who realized this, and during one of the final scenes of this episode, the exocomp was basically ordered to take on this virus and go to the ship and just say, and pretty much sacrifice its life, or at least potentially sacrifice its life. And the exocomp's attitude was more of, hey, F off, I'm out of here. And that is actually extremely consistent with what we saw in the episode The Quality of Life, where how Data was able to determine that, hey, this thing has some kind of self-awareness or self-preservation to it, was whenever it knew it was going into an area where it would be severely damaged, it would shut itself down. And that's kind of what we're seeing on from this in this episode, where this exocomp is just like, well, peace out, and just transports itself into space, where it's just gonna be like, well, I guess that's that. Okay, so a couple other inside jokes. Wolf 359 was an inside job. Now, obviously, that's that's a reference to The Best of Both Worlds, where the Borg destroyed 40 Starfleet ships on its way to Earth. And Locutus, Picard led the Borg on that one. So I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the reference to, hey, Picard was behind it all, or whether it was a lot like the 9/11 truthers, where they're convinced that there were too many funny things going on for it not to have been the government's actual involvement in it, or whatever. And then of course, the changelings aren't real, and Dominion War never happened. You know, those are Deep Space Nine references. Okay, so then we have the Titan, the USS Titan, Captain Riker's ship is name dropped. And it has a payoff. The Titan actually shows up. This is the first time the Titan has ever showed up on screen. So it's mentioned in Star Trek Nemesis as the ship that Riker is leaving the Enterprise to go captain. And there's a series of novels that are based on it. And there has never been an official design of it. The design that was used for the novels was actually designed by fans in some kind of contest. And I believe, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that this is the exact same design that we saw on the show. I mean, it's a beautiful design, beautiful ship. So yeah, it's good to see that the Titan was actually is actually considered a pretty big, awesome ship, and utilized pretty effectively. And it's always good to see Will Riker. He's one of those characters that gets better with age, I think, and almost quite literally, because he's one of those ones that in the Next Generation season 1, it was just kind of like, I don't know, I don't like him. He's trying too hard to be a pretty boy and everything, and I don't think it really works. And very much reminiscent of Star Trek the Motion Picture Will Decker. I mean, it's the same character, it really is. And that was on purpose. Decker and Ilia are Riker and Troy. And that's no mystery to any longtime fans. But then once Riker grew his beard, I don't know, it just kind of became more of just a better character overall, in my opinion. Okay, so with the Titan showing up, we get to confirmation that most of the fleet, or at least a lot of the fleet, is still using the First Contact uniforms. So this show takes place after Star Trek Nemesis, which was the final Star Trek Next Generation movie. And so the first Contact uniforms, the uniforms first introduced in First Contact with the gray shoulder pads and the colored division undershirt, was so that was first introduced in Star Trek First Contact, and shortly after, like in the middle of Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 5. So that's when that transition happened. So those uniforms are still in use. And the uniforms used for the Cerritos are uniforms that are very reminiscent of the rejected uniform concept that was supposed to be introduced in Star Trek Generations. So the little history there, those uniforms are supposed to be introduced in Star Trek Generations. But they were just like, no, let's not do that. But then by the time filming started happening, they were kind of scrambling on what uniforms are we going to use. Some uniforms are destroyed, of the old style and whatever. And so that's where you see the mishmash of uniforms from the Next Generation uniforms to the then Deep Space Nine uniforms, Deep Space Nine Voyager uniforms, with the red shoulder pads. That's why you see them just kind of switching between those two uniform types. Anyway, so the episode has it's really good commentary on what the heck happened to the Pakleds. I mean, they were introduced as a total joke. In the Samaritan Snare, which is season 2 episode of Next Generation. What happened there was, okay, they sent out a distress call, and they were so stupid. They were so dumb. So it was basically we can't take these guys as a serious threat because they're just dumb. So, we're just going to be happy with them and play around and get them back up and going. Hey, we want to go. We want our ship to go. Geordi can make our ship go. And so they end up trying to kidnap Geordi and all this good stuff. So Samaritan Snare was that episode. So the Pakleds, they would end up taking advantage of the Good Samaritan. So that's and it's kind of good to see that there actually was some follow-up on that, where, hey, if they end up taking advantage of enough good people, they could actually end up acquiring enough technology to be a huge threat. So that was actually pretty good. The things I liked about this episode overall is it proved that even though this season has overall been episodic, it all just kind of came back together, because there were elements from each episode that end up just kind of coming back together to actually mean something, instead of just the simple episode of the week and, hey, this season finale is just another episode of the week. I mean, we got things that were touched on or things that were introduced that just came back to actually mean something, like Badgie. Badgie comes back. I mean, if you saw my review about the episode where Badgie was in, I mean, yeah, the guy, that's a funny character, and things of that nature. And we already touched on the thread about Mariner being the captain's daughter, and things of that nature. The fact that Boimler actually does want a promotion, and how that's a little bit of a point of contention between him and Mariner. Things of that nature. So that's really good. So I like that even though the series overall is episodic, each episode actually does come to mean something in the end. Okay, so here is the this is a part that it was just kind of a laugh out loud moment for me. So it's on the Titan, and Riker is just like, oh yeah, I was just on the holodeck watching the first Enterprise, and Archer and that crew, and so that's kind of a reference to the finale of Enterprise, where the finale of Enterprise was basically Riker watching an episode of Enterprise. So I mean, that was funny to joke about because it actually didn't work in real life. I mean, it was an okay episode, but as the series finale, it was kind of an insult to Enterprise, and I think most Star Trek fans end up seeing it that way. Although it was a neat concept, it didn't work. And then and then Riker ends up saying, "Oh yeah, I love watching those guys. They've been on a long road, get from there to here. It's like, oh my god, thanks for the earworm, Riker." Okay, so yeah, this was easily the best episode of the season. And episode 9 was easily the best episode of the season at that point. So I mean, this is a darn good show. I'm pretty happy about it. And next week we get our first episode of Discovery Season 3. And also this week we had some big news with Kate Mulgrew is coming back to Star Trek. Reprising her role as Janeway. They keep saying Captain Janeway, but at this point she's an admiral. But I guess it all kind of depends on what time period this ship or this show takes place. It's actually, she's going to be brought back for the next animated series that's in development, and that's actually a Nickelodeon show. So it's actually going to be a Star Trek animated for children. It's going to be Star Trek Prodigy. I'm not sure when that's actually coming out. I don't know if there's a release date, but that's going to be an animated for kids show. This one is not animated for a kids show. Lower Decks is an animated for more mature audiences. So, I don't know. That sounds like a little bit of an oxymoron. A cartoon for adults. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, seeing Janeway come back. As much as I like to hate on Voyager sometimes, I know my friend Rachel she gets on me for my hatred for Voyager or certain Voyager episodes, like Endgame. Yeah, sorry, that episode's terrible. Shots fired. Shots fired. As much as I want to hate on that show, I actually quite enjoy it. Okay, so that's all my commentary. And I shall see you next week.